Seguego, everyone. My name is Brandon Rice. I currently work for the Environment Protection Office in Kahnawàke as a project support technician. I'm also a member of Kahnawàke. This is my colleague, Tyler.
Hi, I'm Tyler. I'm also working at the Kahnawàke Environment Protection Office. I'm currently living in Kahnawàke or Montreal. And yeah, looking forward to speaking with you guys.
So today we'll be presenting our aquatic stewardship in Kahnawàke, which is a community-based monitoring and conservation project. During our presentation, we'll be talking about the history of Kahnawàke, the Kahnawàke culture, the establishment of the territory, the effects of colonialism on our land and our waters, the history of the Environment Protection Office, how it came to be, and our current projects that we're doing now. Kahnawàke, also known as Place at the Rapids, is a Kahnawàke Mohawk territory situated on what is now known as the south shore of Montreal, or otherwise known as Kahnawàke, where the current meets. It was officially settled in 1716 as part of a Jesuit mission. As you can see in the photo, though, there's many prior settlements along the shores of the St. Lawrence. However, according to our history, the Kahnawàke of Kahnawàke, our culture, we've been using this area since time immemorial as a trading, hunting, fishing, and trapping area. One of the stories is that long ago we'd use the St. Lawrence as a long travel and trade route. So from here you could go to the Richelieu River, down to the Champlain River, which takes you all the way down to Hudson to nowadays what is referred to as Albany. But during the Mohawk occupation, it was known as the Mohawk Valley. From there, you can go down to the Mohawk River, which is the largest tributary of the Hudson River, and that brings you all the way to the Great Lakes, more specifically Lake Ontario, which restarts your journey up the St. Lawrence. So some significance of water. Water is rooted in our identity as Kahnawàke of Kahnawàke. It's part of our culture. It's part of who we are. How we refer to ourselves as Kahnawàke Ronu, or people at the rapids, is a direct relation to the river and its significance to us. Some other examples of water and how much it means to us is by some words like Yoganoru, which is the word we use for rain, and Gonarunkwa, which is the word we use today as I love you. However, when they're broken down, they have a much deeper meaning in the Mohawk language. Both of these words share the root word Gonaru, which is the word for precious in our language. For Yoganoru, it describes the significance of descending water. So that ties into our culture, which we're a big agriculture and farming civilization. And as for Gonarunkwa, the word I love you, it also shares the root word Gonoru, which ties into Yoganoru. So when they're all combined together, it means something like you were as precious to me as the rain. So to any effects on the land or anything that would be taken from us on the land has impacts on our culture and our language. Some of these effects could be like colonialism, which numerous colonial government projects that have been done on the territory have had lasting negative effects on us. They've disrupted our connections to the natural world, impacted our wildlife, our culture, and our economy. Some of these projects include the expropriations for highways, train bridges, the Mercier Bridge, and most notably the St. Lawrence Seaway. These expropriations were done because it was much cheaper to expropriate our land and less people to remove. Because of these expropriations, our land base is now at 13,000 acres, when in the beginning we were given a tract of 40,000 acres, about 40,000 acres to live on for the community. All these projects have disrupted our direct connection to the water, fragmented our community, changed our landscape, and affected the resources in which the river provided. To lose part of this river in the land base also meant to lose part of who we were and who we are.
Right.
If you want to touch on other alterations.
Yeah. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about some of these river alterations. First of all, the dams that are blocking the flow of water into the lower part of the St. Lawrence, so Lac St. Louis, and where Kahnawàke is over here with this yellow circle in the top right being the top of the seaway. So these two dams in the lower left, the Beauharnois Dam and the Pointe Cascade Dam, both regulate all of the flow going into the river. In addition to changing the flow regime downstream, they also limit fish passage. So fish like sturgeon and walleye are unable to move freely between both sections. And another big impact is the impact on eels. So eels that migrate between the ocean and the Great Lakes experience really high mortality as they go down through the turbines. Roughly 20% of eels end up being killed in the turbines as they pass through. So when you have these two dams, in addition to the dam upstream in Cornwall, you're losing a lot of eels. The biggest alteration, though, and the most significant to Kahnawàke is the construction of the St. Lawrence Seaway between 1950 and 1959. So this involves the expropriation of over 1,200 acres of land. And the community went from looking like it did in this top photograph here, where you have houses and families right on the water with boats right out in front, and being able to swim and wash and fish right out their front doors, to having those houses demolished, and B, they don't have that. The community doesn't have that tie directly to the flowing rapids that it once did. Furthermore, all of this sediment that was dredged from the bottom of the seaway was actually used to make an island that connected a couple of pre-existing islands to the south of the seaway, which caused some stagnation back in here. So it also really dramatically changed the flow regime in this part of the water. And then all of the sediment that wasn't dumped in the islands here was actually dumped on what used to be really good arable land elsewhere in Kahnawàke, and now that is no longer good for planting whatsoever. And by this physical disruption, it also really broke the community's connection to the water, which had really lasting implications in many different aspects of life. Brandon, back to you.
Because of this project, because of the Seaway project, the community decided to take a stand and stop future incursions by settler governments. So from there formed the grassroots initiative, the KDRP, which was known as the Kahnawàke Development Research Program, which in the 1980s actually stopped what was known as the Archipel Project. It was several dams that were supposed to be constructed in the Montreal and surrounding area, but most notably too, Kahnawàke, there was a hydro dam supposed to be put just upstream in the Lachine Rapids. The dam could potentially flood and damage not only Kahnawàke land, but unsettled land claim areas, the ecosystem, and our sturgeon population most significantly. From there, like the win from this protest gave the community momentum to fight further environment issues and take control of our territory again. Some of these issues that we fought were illegal dumping in the 1990s, which was actually led by the Mohawk women of the 207 Longhouse. From there, the Longhouse ran the monitoring. Our traditional government, which is known as the Longhouse, ran the monitoring and protection of the environment until the late 90s, when the Mohawk Council of Kahnawàke took over for funding purposes and helped the Kahnawàke Environment Protection Office grow to what it is today. Today, we've grown to 13 staff. We come from very diverse backgrounds, ranging from aquatics, education, ArcGIS specialists, and everywhere in between. Together, we're working to preserve and protect Kahnawàke, Kahnawàke Ronu, and the ecosystems. We're doing this by leading the way in sampling, monitoring, education, and protection. And ultimately, we're trying to be role models, stewards, and promote stewardship on the land. These are some of the, Tyler will talk about some of the projects that we're doing.
Yeah, I'm just going to elaborate a little bit on some of the aquatic projects that we've been doing. So one of the most important aquatic resources in Kahnawàke is the sturgeon population, and the sturgeon population in this part of the St. Lawrence is one of the largest in North America, and this is despite the various incursions that have occurred here and damage to the river, and this is largely likely due to Kahnawàke Ronu stewardship. So making sure that dam didn't get put in at the Lachine Rapids, which is where there's some really crucial sturgeon spawning habitat. And that's, kept this economically, culturally, and nutritionally important species, thriving in this area. Nonetheless, the Mercier Bridge, which connects the island of Montreal to the South Shore, one of the bridges does that, is in actually really sensitive sturgeon spawning habitat. And like many Montreal bridges, it requires some maintenance. And in fact, the province is looking to reconstruct this bridge, which could have devastating consequences for the sturgeon population. So one of the things that we did this summer, and I'm just going to play this video of Brandon looking for some sturgeon eggs here, was to actually find exactly where the sturgeon were spawning and using habitat around the bridge. This was done in collaboration with the Quebec Transportation Ministry, as well as the Fish and Forestry and Parks Ministry. And we found that, yeah, there are still sturgeon spawning in fairly large numbers around here. Won't get into the exact locations, but this is going to really help KEPO and the council negotiate for if there is construction of this bridge, ultimately to make sure that it is done in a way that does not hurt these sturgeon. That's a fun video. And I think the next thing, I can't get this, there we go, that I'd like to talk about is the Indigenous Habitat Participation Program, which is funded by the Department for Fisheries and Oceans Canada. And this is allowed for the centering of ecological research in Kahnawàke around a Kahnawàke perspective. And it's leveraging federal funds, so funds from the same entity that has, over the course of history, really wrought a lot of damage on the area, to really come back and protect and rehabilitate this environment. And it's doing this by helping KEPO to build capacity and create opportunities for career development within Kahnawàke in scientific environmental work. And it's been a really great beginning to the project over the past year and a half or so.
So one of the projects that this IHPP has helped us build and develop is the Aquatic Stewardship Program, or the ASP. This program is studying and monitoring the inland water courses in Kahnawàke. By inland, we're referring to creeks, streams, swamps, and wetlands. The program also is integrating the community knowledge, storytelling, and scientific monitoring to assess the monitor and health of these ecosystems. Our focus with the ASP program is to assess the impact of several stressors that these water courses are facing and find ways to remediate them. Some of these stressors include dump sites, as highlighted in the photos here. These are several dump sites located in Kahnawàke. These sites consist of garbage, toxic, and demolition waste. Most of this dumping was done between the 1960s and 1990s. And this is actually what the traditional women of the Longhouse stood together to stop.
Another major stressor on Kahnawàke's waters has been the diversion of flow and the channelization of flow throughout the territory. So this came mostly post Seaway, and the Seaway being the time when there was the largest disruption of the ties to the land and the water, and as sort of the economy and livelihoods of people became less tied to the land and more dependent on a capitalist system, you saw more Western notions of how to channel water and manage water come in. And a lot of the rivers that, the smaller rivers and streams that ran through the community were channeled, as you can see in this photo on the left, where you have these cobbled stones and riprap causing these straight waterways rather than a naturally winding system with healthy riparian zones. Also, there's a lot of upstream agriculture in the Kahnawàke area, and then further south, it has several factories in the area as well. And of course, climate change is a pervasive stressor everywhere that hardly needs mentioning. And one of the major things that has come up over and over again in conversations, usually informal conversations while we're doing our work, is how the damaged connection that people had to the land and the water has really been a source of a lot of the environmental problems in the community. And that has come up several times in conversation, or more than several. It's come up a lot when we've talked to community members over the past year that both Brandon and I have been working here. So just to elaborate a little bit more on our aquatic stewardship program in Kahnawàke, some of the scientific monitoring that we've been doing include the monitoring of physicochemical parameters, so looking at metal pollution, nutrients, fecal coliforms, and we're actually going to be putting in some temperature data logging stations throughout the streams mapped out here in the bottom right, so that we can track 24-hour temperature cycles, but throughout the year, so that we can know what fish habitat is like in the territory, but also see how it's going to change in the coming years as we continue to experience climate change. We also have been monitoring bioindicators such as benthic macroinvertebrates, which we are up here in this upper right photo getting trained in this past fall, as well as fish and fish habitat monitoring. All right.
The second part of the ASP program, which we mentioned before, is the integration of community knowledge. As Tyler said, so often when we're doing our sampling or really any projects, we have community members come up to us, both young and old, and just talk to us about the stream quality, the river quality, and they talk to us about, how they used to see different species of fish come up the creeks and spawn or come feed, how they used to play in these creeks, how they used to be in good conditions, they weren't overgrown. So moving forward, we wanted to really harness this knowledge and document it. So we're going to be conducting interviews, recording these interviews and documentaries with community members and hopefully some elders. And hopefully, as COVID situation goes over a little more, that we can meet with them. And we really want to get more of this storytelling and knowledge sharing. It's going to help us better understand these waterways and how they got to this state. And also by pairing these monitoring efforts of scientific and community knowledge, we get to track long-term trends and changes in these areas. With the community sharing, will help reinvigorate stewardship with the community and ultimately work together for remediation efforts. With that being said, I just want to say Kahnawàke, thank you very much. Everyone here today for having us, listening to us. We also want to give a big shout out to our KEPO staff for helping us with other projects, our leadership for the opportunities, and also our funders, the Mohawk Council of Kahnawàke and the Department of Fisheries and Oceans Canada. So Kahnawàke, thank you guys for having us.